Holy happy holidays here. This is John Chen. It's November 30th, and we're just recovering from Seattle's first snow of the year. It really did look like this out of my house yesterday. It was quite amazing. And what she's talk about challenging things. We're just looking at the power outage map. Everything above me, right north of me, right now is many of places are still out of power. And last night I was actually up late facilitating a course to Saudi Arabia. And I had a lot of power flickers. By the way, you want a great tip? Buy an uninterrupted power supply. They're under $150 at Amazon, and what it does is it saved me yesterday because we had a power flicker yesterday, and it saved my whole computer system from rebooting in the middle of a program. I actually have a post-it here. Wait, I can show you this. Check this out. This will be number 11. This is number 10 that it saved me at. It has saved me 11 reboots for that. So there's your holiday tip for the weather. Speaking of holiday tips, this gentleman, him and I have actually known each other quite a while here. He's local in the Seattle area. We actually just saw each other on the virtual event on virtual events, and he is an amazing person in the financial community here in Seattle. Let's welcome the one and only my good friend, Devin Stubblefield. Devin, what's going on?
Hey, John. Hey, man. First of all, thanks for having me. And you mentioned the snow, and it wasn't quite that bad down here in Brenton, but nonetheless, you know how things shut down around here when it snows. But I'm glad to be here today, man. This is just exciting to be on your show.
Yeah, thank you so much, Devin. Yeah, Seattle's one of those places we get like half an inch of snow every shut down, right?
Right.
It's because
Exactly.
we don't
Yeah.
do that all the time. But we are doing this, which is great. This is cool. We have all our power. We have all of our internet right now. We feel blessed in that way. And again, Devin and I met originally through Black Dot, which is a great organization here in Seattle, has a co-op, has a co-working space. I've gotten a chance to do live streams with Black Dot. Devin has really been a leader inside of this community, and he's been a speaker at multiple events that I've seen him at. So, Devin, for my friends who don't know you, can you tell them who are you and what is some of the things that you do, Devin?
Oh, yeah. Well, first of all, I'm just a regular guy, that, I found a passion for financial empowerment. So, yeah, so I'm an entrepreneur. And, what it boils down to for me, John, is that I really love to help others win financially. And so that's what's been driving me all these years to show up and to do events and to really share what knowledge I have. My background obviously it's been in banking, and in addition to that, I've been a financial advisor and now a coach, and so I just kind of just got well rounded in the industry, and so now I just feel like I just want to just share everything I know. so so that's me, man.
It was a each one teach one, something like
Yeah,
that, right?
exactly. Yeah.
Devin, why are finances so important? Again, I'm a business owner. I have another friend who does, specifically targets business owners with their finances, right? There's like what looks like a great business, if kind of like the duck under the water. Sometimes if you look underneath the hood, some of the things are not financially healthy. I'd love to hear from you. One, why are you so passionate around financial things? And two, why is it such a big challenge for so many different people?
Yeah, great question, John. I got to tell you, what it is, especially for entrepreneurs, people get involved with their respective ideas and they start doing stuff, and they may have got some money to invest and have capital in their business. But, at the end of the day, it's really about, you know, can that business sustain that person and their lifestyle? And for some, I mean, that's easier said than done. Others, it's a struggle. And so one of the things that has motivated me and my family, we've got a bunch of entrepreneurs that do various different things. And, I just really have admired how the perseverance of some of those in my family that have gone through and made it through financially. And when I look abroad and I travel the country and I'm looking at other people and talking to them, people have questions. And, nobody expected the pandemic to happen. And so, people are like trying to figure it out. So I'm like, hey, you know what? Let's just see what we can do to get people more information and knowledge, because I think that's one of the biggest things. If a person doesn't know how to adjust financially to something, then chances are they're going to make a mistake. Chances are things are going to be bad and they might not be able to recover from it. So it's really true that financial knowledge really makes a huge difference. So that's my take on that.
Devin, I love that you have multiple entrepreneurs in your family because I think statistically, right? I mean, like that's uh, it's tough to get that many entrepreneurs. With a group of people out of 10, you only get a few. And then I think some of the other statistics is that what is it? 9 out of 10 businesses go out of business in the first 3 years, and so that path of entrepreneurship is challenging. It's definitely not for everybody. But I bet, the people in around you gained an advantage if, of course, they're borrowing you for their financial knowledge, helping them to become a successful business. What are some of the top tips that you've given to them that has helped them stay out of financial trouble?
Yeah, well, the number one tip I always tell people is that the money in their mind controls the money in their wallet. In other words, it's about money mindset.
Oh,
And if
yeah.
your money mindset is good, it's positive, and you're always thinking that things are on the upswing, then your behaviors and actions will follow. However, if the opposite is true and you're thinking things are on the down low and you're like, hey, I'm trying to figure it out and swim through this, then things could be a lot more challenging. So it's all about perspective and how people look at things. So I tell people that when it comes to finances, everything is figure outable. Everything. Right? You can figure it out if you just let go of the stress and just calm down and just figure out what to do next. There is always a way out.
I appreciate that figure it outable. You know what I've always said is like when I'm having challenges or that you have to deal with, I'm looking, is it a solvable or non-solvable problem, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes money can solve a lot of problems, right? And if it can't solve the problem, what my good friend liked to say, Devin, we could at least arrive at our problems in style.
Right.
And so yeah, so there's very few unsolvable problems, but there are a few, and those are the you obviously want to avoid. But I love that you say that. In finances, for the most part, it's almost all solvable problems if you just stop, right? Slow down,
Yeah.
think about it, and not react to what's going on, but think about a strategic plan around it. You've been a coach and a trainer. Like, what's your favorite financial story? Here, I'll share one with you while you think about it. I got a chance to work with our good friends at Urban Impact here in Seattle, right? Which I know you're a fan of, and one of the entrepreneurs, Queen's Care, of course, makes beauty products. But in the beginning of the pandemic, where I think if I read in the newspapers right, the statistics said half of all Black-owned business were predicted to go out of business before the pandemic was over, and she came in there and she learned to make hand sanitizer,
Wow.
and she tripled her business.
Wow, man. That is amazing. Hand sanitizer.
Hand sanitizer because she had all the products around.
Yeah.
So she made incredibly cool scented hand sanitizer, right? That had some essential oils inside of it, and she sold a lot. And that was something that she looked at. And so instead of not just surviving, right? We had 12 entrepreneurs that were in their Urban Impact Accelerator program. All of them, 100% of them were surviving and thriving through a pandemic. And again, like kind of like your whole family full of entrepreneurs, statistically, that's not what's going on. And I love to see islands of, greatness like that so it can shine the light for other people. You have a story kind of like,
Oh, yeah, man. Oh, okay. So a few years ago, when I used to do homebuyer classes for the Urban League, Metropolitan Seattle, they've been around for a long time, and I really kind of got my career as a financial empowerment person through working with them. But this one particular year, this guy came to the class, and he had been doing some things to get his life back together. He had, he was formerly incarcerated, and going through that kind of recovery. But here's the thing: he asked me would I personally show him how to make it happen for himself. And this was like after the class. And so I said, okay, cool. So, I exchanged a few emails with him. But then what I found out, he was doing everything that I suggested. I mean, everything. And I was like, wow.
greatest student ever.
Everything. Yeah. And so, man, I'm telling you, John, within about 18 months, literally 18 months after that class, he was telling me that he was making an offer on a home. And that really, really impacted me because it made me feel like, that if there's a pathway, if a person's really willing to do the work and to stay committed, and I always say you choose commitment over convenience, right? You just keep going, right? And let it happen. That's what this guy did. He did it. He closed on his home. It was an amazing thing, man. So, I was high-fiving him for many months after that. So it was just a story of perseverance. And because, sometimes when people have a rough past and they try to get things together and redo stuff, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But for him, he did it. And I'm just grateful that I had the opportunity to share with him. And so that's one of my all-time favorite stories to talk about, man. That guy was amazing.
I love that, Devin. It's one of those things, like if you're an author, right, that like no one can take the book away from you. You did
Yeah.
that. And for those who have never written a book, it's a lot of work. It's like climbing mountains. I've climbed mountains in my past. No
Yeah,
one can take that summit away from you. You did all of that, right? And
absolutely.
yeah, and I think there's some pride that goes along with that. And I think too, Devin, right, with that buying of the home, that person changes. He becomes a new person, right?
Yeah, for sure. For
And
sure.
you never know what's going to happen to that. What if he starts teaching other people? Now he gets onto that part. And even actually, that happened to me with my very good friend in high school. I went to high school in Stockton, California, and one of my very good friends chose to go to college. Right? He didn't say anything, but I was one of the few inside of my group that went to college. And he saw that example, and like 3 or 4 years after me, he got into college, and he was actually the first kid in his family to graduate from a college.
Wow. That's amazing. That's awesome, man. It's
With that, college too has the statistic that says you'll earn $1 million at least, on average, $1 million more in your lifetime. So I'm kind of curious, Devin, if you or one of your clients, happened upon $1 million, what would you might tell them to do with it, or what might you have them think about with that $1 million?
You know what? That's a great question. And I would say that to think about how you can keep that $1 million, right? How to keep it. Because what you could do is you could take that million and put it away in the right investments and then live off of the dividends and the returns from that. And really don't really take too much away from the principal. And I think for the most part, a lot of people, when they get lump sums, they like, okay, I'm going to pay off debt. I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And not thinking about the preservation of capital. So that's what I would say, is to think about how we can keep most of that around so that, you outlive the money, so, so the money doesn't run out before it's time for you to, when you need it later. So and you mentioned college. Oh my God, that bring up a memory, man.
Wow.
John, when I was going to the UW, man, they had these guys coming on campus giving out these credit card applications. Like,
All
oh
the
my
time.
God, nobody had a job, man. Nobody they were giving out credit card applications, and people getting approved. And so, when you said college, that triggered my thought on that, because I remember, I ended up, me personally, I was one of those guys who got the cards. And brother, I tell you what, I started taking all my friends out and frat brothers out, and Red Robin was our thing. And man, but what if the credit card guys never came on campus, and I wouldn't have never done that, because I ended up paying for it. And that was one of the reasons why I got so adamant about helping other people, man, because I remember what I went through on that. So anyway, when I talk about preservation of capital, wow. So avoiding credit debt really can help with that as well. So anyway, you brought that memory back when you said that.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, because they do that, right? That's a kind of pseudo predatory. I mean, the real guidance you can always, I'm sure you tell people, Devin,
Yeah.
if you get a card, pay it off, right?
Yeah.
Don't spend the money you don't have.
Yeah.
And that would assist you. But all of a sudden you look at this thing, and if you've never had the education to go with it, with the best practices, it's just too tempting, right?
It is, man. I get it. Yeah.
Speaking of tempting, I would love to hear, before we talk some more about virtual meetings, you have some experience in fintech. I would love to hear what's happening on fintech on your horizon. What do you know, and what can you share with?
Yeah. I got to say, John, fintech is one of those things that, it had to happen, right? I mean, it had to. Everybody is on a device, right? We're on devices all day long. And so the fintech companies, they figured it out. They're bringing everyday stuff that we do financially into apps. And that is so amazing. Now, I realize there's a certain segment of the population that hasn't really got on with that yet. But the point is, it's here to stay. And so we talk about like payment processing and, the person to person payment. People are doing Venmo, Cash App, all that stuff. That's all fintech, man. And then, but let's take it more practical. You have people that are trying to pay off their debt or to manage their credit card. So they can do all of that with apps now. So it's almost like people don't have to really get the knowledge. What happens is they'll learn by doing, by engaging with the apps. So I think that they were thinking that they could solve a lot of problems, man, because when we talk about financial literacy, that's a whole nother issue in terms of what people know how to do. But these apps are making it really easy for people to really get a hold of their finances. So in my opinion, fintech is a necessary thing. They're here to stay, and they're just making it really accessible for young and older people to really, really get a hold of the things that they want to do financially. So I think it's pretty awesome.
One of the things that I've seen in fintech is like, like the simplest thing is that it'll come through your credit card bill and look for recurring charges.
Yeah.
Because like the people of businesses have figured out, right? Auto pay is the greatest thing that ever got invented, and except for when you're the consumer and you're still paying for stuff you may or may not be using. And so I've seen apps that can go hunt that out and tell you things and like help you unsubscribe from all the stuff that you didn't know you were paying for. Because I think that's one of the things you have to stay diligent about. Kind of like your credit card people, is that once you have a credit card, things that are on auto pay can sneak up on you, and if you're not diligent, can keep charging you money when you really shouldn't be paying for these kind of things. I think the other thing, I don't know if you're a fan of YNAB or You Need a Budget.
Yeah.
So that's also an incredible app that allows you to keep track of your expenses as you're going through and purchasing them. And I think that's an important factor too, which is tracking, right? Now that you have the ability to do that, if you could just track what you have and have it alert you when you're spending more than you're supposed to on like Red Robin,
Right.
then it would help. This is when technology can help you as opposed to hurt you. It's a tool. What I've always told my friends, like with a car, you can rob a bank or you can take your grandma to the doctor, but it's the same car. Maybe
Right.
fintech is a little the same way. What's some of your favorite apps or applications that you've seen in fintech?
Yeah, well, I gotta tell you, man, in terms of my favorite, I'm kind of old school, but you remember Mint. Mint's been around for a while, but they have evolved and it's pretty awesome. And the other thing is there's another app called WiseFi, which actually is a program that really helps you track your net worth based on things that you're doing. Very cool stuff. So those two. So I'm more of the guy who's looking for stuff that's going to help me see the picture. So those are kind of apps I like. But one thing I want to say, John, that this since fintech has came out and we're talking about all these retail, especially now during the holiday season, there's this thing called buy now, pay later. And so there's a lot of apps, fintech apps that are saying, hey, you want to go to Best Buy and you want to get that purchase. Here is an app or a company that will help you finance that purchase. So buy now, pay later. So that has emerged big time on the scene now. And there's probably 3 or 4 or 5 of those apps that do that when people are just doing their normal shopping. And so it's just like we're in a new age right now. So the point is that to your point about the vehicle, you can use it for good or use it for not so good. I think people have to determine what's going to be their best way of operating with some of these apps, just to make sure that they're doing the right stuff and keeping themselves out of trouble.
Yeah, I mean, if you pay for payments like that, it sometimes looks as a good deal, but it's usually one of those, which is if you miss a payment and you don't read their terms, that's how they're making all their money. And
Yes.
so basically, with an app, you can become a bank or a credit card company. And again, if you have a certain percentage of people who miss payments, that you can you can make a big business out of that. So again, things that can hurt you or help you, because one thing too, I work with the Business Resource Open House, which is part of the Beacon Hill Alliance, and they just said entrepreneurs have a challenge getting access to capital
Oh
so
yeah.
that they can expand. And so that's the hard part. Like, you want access to something like this, but you want access without having it, pay some high percentage point for getting to it, uh,
Yeah.
to help you as a business. So
Yeah, that's a good point, man. Access, that's a big deal. And so, matter of fact, that's one of the foundations of financial literacy, is to making sure that if people need certain things, that they can get to it, right? It's one thing to know what you need and what you need to do, but it's another thing to actually do it and have access to it. And so that's a big deal. And so I really appreciate you bringing that point up. But access is huge, is huge.
Yep. And so, yeah, if you have questions about access, feel free to ask them to Devin. One thing I want to move on to here too is that financial information now has been transmitted for the last few years in new and unique ways. Again, I saw you on the virtual event for virtual events.
Yeah.
And so, we're all exploring in our own businesses and our lives this new way to really connect. And so I'm just curious for you, Devin, in the last 2 years, what has to happen in a virtual meeting for you, Devin Stubblefield, to feel like I'm fully engaged in this content in this virtual meeting?
Yeah, you know what? That's a great question, and I'm grateful that the pandemic kind of put us all in this virtual space to really get acclimated to it. But for me, you still have to have that human element. It's so easy to have cameras off, right? And then just kind of just you're there, but you're not there. I think for me, I think the full experience where people are playing full out, cameras on, using the emojis, typing in the chat, going in the break rooms, having a chance to engage with others in the event. Because if we're in a live event, that's what's happening, right? We're bumping elbows with people, we're slapping dap, or giving high fives, we're doing all that stuff, right? So I think that to the extent that we can replicate that in a virtual environment, I think that's what it does for me. It really makes me feel like this was a great experience, right? Because in my opinion, you want people, if they're going to show up to an event, why not play full out? I mean, you're there, right? Play full out, right? Yeah. So that's my take on that.
It's
Yeah.
a great take, Devin. I just recently talked with a group, and they have this sales meeting, and I said, "What's your biggest virtual challenge?" He goes, "In our sales meeting, everyone's multitasking." And he goes, "What would you do with that?" I said, "Redesign the meeting
Yeah.
immediately." And I said,
Yeah.
"What?" And he goes, I said, "At first, start with this upfront statement." I said, "If you give me your full attention during this meeting, I will make this meeting shorter."
Yeah. That's good.
Right. Otherwise, you
That's
won't have
good.
a meeting, right? Because again, if
Yeah.
the people can actually participate or like log into a meeting but not actually participate, then I kind of think you're doing it wrong. I think you should go in there and I said redesign the meeting and get those people, especially those who are tuned out, and like make them do something such as make them present. Because
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you, when
Yeah.
you're a presenter in a virtual meeting, it's almost impossible for you to be multitasking.
Exactly. Exactly.
and
Yeah. And I think that's why a lot of people keep their cameras off, right? That's it, because they want to do their thing. but but yeah, that's good. Redesign the meeting. That's good, John.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just fully redesigned.
Yeah.
And the last 2 years, what is one of your top virtual meeting experiences, whether it's speaking or being an attendee? I'd love to know, what are some of your top experiences? Who did it right for you?
Yeah. Okay. I gotta say, I mean, this probably might be a favorite of a lot of people, but man, I gotta say, Tony Robbins and Dean Graziosi, I was at one of their World Summit events, man, and man, I felt like felt like I was at a concert, man. It was so cool because I mean, the music was going,
Yes.
and they took time to allow the audience, and this is what was great. The cameras panned on like just like what you got behind you right there. Yes, sir. That was so amazing to me to see everybody that was on, cameras on, standing up. They're engaging. They're just rah in the whole time, and that's what made it awesome. So my real first experience with that was with Dean and Tony, and I just it just made me feel a certain type of way about virtual events. If you're gonna do it, you might as well do it for real, do it all out. So that's it, John. Those guys were great.
Again, I'm a fan of
Yeah,
Robbins. I hung around his live events, and I would really
yeah,
watch what he did virtually.
yeah.
He invested 5 million or more now into his studio, and I've actually
Wow.
had the honor of I was beamed into his studio virtual for his youth leadership summit,
Oh,
and it is a
awesome.
spectacle. I mean, like if people think of like my setup here. I'll just give you a peek at my setup, right? They're like, "What the heck is John doing with this setup?" But their
Wow.
setup is even bigger. It's like 10 times or more. It's probably 50 times or 100 times bigger because they really are. They can put in 40,000 people with that. And Tony
Wow.
really said too, because a lot of his live programs capped out at 5 or 10,000. You know, because he got people like you, he got 40 and 50,000 people online. He
Yeah.
discovered how to, impact 5 times as many more people for a fraction of the
Wow.
cost. And
Wow.
I give it to him because I don't think anybody else innovated more than he did. He really he experimented. I actually got to see his earlier experiment. He had like 5 or 6 HD televisions in his house in Florida, and
Wow.
that was a precursor to the $40,000 or 40,000 online virtual UPW. And so it's really, really impressive stuff. I do model that, and I've gotten a chance to meet again. What Blue and Barry
Yeah.
are the two who helped design that studio, and so I've kept track of the people who he asked to help do that because they really did something phenomenal there that I have not seen almost anywhere else. So.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, it totally blew me away. Yeah. So it was great.
So
Yeah.
that's the key is that the best part here too I've been telling people Devin is that we can get the majority of that sometimes now with no additional technology. If you have the baseline, you got good internet, a good camera, good lighting, right, and a decent mic, you can get some of that effect from Tony Robbins because what I've just seen now, one is that there's a desire for it because people are kind of like burned out with having more tech. And
Hmm.
then the second one is that it's how you run the meeting, Devin,
Mm.
right?
Yeah.
If you do one part and you like pontificate on financial information for 60 minutes, then you're just broadcasting one way like an old school webinar. But if you
Right.
want to have it like Robbins, you can technically do that using all the tools that you have here on Zoom without investing $5 million in a studio. And again, it's key around how you design your training. So
Wow.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's some of the stuff coming around. I'd love to, hear yeah, what do you see as the future, right? So you're a financial person, you're always looking at the future. I'd love to hear what do you think the future of virtual is for both you and kind of what do you think is going to happen around the financial industry?
Yeah, well, I gotta say, virtual the future is already here. I mean, because the technology that is available to kind of even the playing field, like you said, you know, don't need a few $1 million to make it happen. You could just have your Zoom and some decent equipment, and you're there. But I see that, especially in my profession, where a lot of it is really about the relationship that you can create with people and that used to be done face to face. This is, there's nothing like being in that interaction. And so one of the things that I envision is that, like for example, like what we're doing right now, I'm having a conversation with you virtually, and let's say that we were talking about finances, and I'm doing some coaching, then my ability to look into the camera, the eye, just right directly, and then have that person feel like that I'm looking at them, connecting with them personally. I think that's what's going to make the difference. And so the more that technology allows us to be able to do that and to really simulate the in-person feel, then I think it's just going to continue to grow because it's like this. If I can pull out my iPhone and I'm doing something else and I've got a meeting, I could stop my car, pull over, and have my meeting face to face with somebody virtually. That is huge. So I think people are rethinking. I don't even think we ever really will go back to the way things were pre-pandemic. I think that's just done and over with. I think the virtual platforms have changed the game for everybody. You know what, John? It's made the world smaller. Right? I don't have to fly to New York, right, to visit somebody there. We could just get on the platform and we can see each other right here, no expense to anybody. So I think it's here to stay. And so my comment to some of the other guys that are coming up and they're not haven't really embraced it. I'm telling everybody to embrace virtual, because this is how we communicate. Everybody's on a device. So don't buck up against it. Just go with the flow, make it work for you. So that's my take on it, John.
It's a great take too, Devin, and I'll be curious to see. The world, of course, is coming back a little bit more in person every day, and your phone really is this, most powerful computer. I finally upgraded an iPhone 7 to 14,
Oh wow.
and I know I jumped 7 generations, and
I was
which is
getting ready
also
to say,
that's a testament to the iPhone 7. Like for me as a user, that I actually could stay with a 7 for 7 years is
yeah, that's
actually
great.
because I'm a power user, I'm not going to lie, but it kept up. But now that I have this phone too, even though I'm not traveling, I use that phone a significant portion of the time. And that's where you just like, again, why fight it? Which is like, I tell people when we were in live programs, we would design them to be interactive so that we said, don't put down your phone, leave it up. But the key here is we would design content that you could see on this phone and interact with live with
Wow.
that so that, we're not fighting it. We're actually working with you that if you want to look at your phone, that's fine. And we're going to drive our content there. It's just like, the whole key is don't tune out and look at something else.
Exactly.
So I think there's great opportunities. And, just like I said, last night, I stayed up till 2 in the morning and I got to teach a class from one of the top companies in Saudi Arabia
Wow.
here from
Yeah.
Seattle in a snowstorm when my power was flickering, and I was still able to do it.
Yeah.
The world has become smaller. I was recently on a meeting and we had guests from Denmark, Germany, New Zealand, South Africa,
Mhm.
um, and Amsterdam, and none of us paid any travel costs.
Yeah.
And so,
That's great, man. I love how we can do that and connect with people. So the distance doesn't matter anymore.
mm-mm.
And that is huge, for human connection. Because there's a lot of people who obviously maybe have family members in different places around the world. And if they've got a device, right? That's the key, having a device. And it just levels the playing field and makes it accessible for everybody. Back to that word access again.
Oh,
So
there
yeah.
you
Yeah.
go.
Yeah.
Hey, speaking of access, I'm going to ask your tech setup question. All right, so what is your setup? Because you are out of my many guests that I've had here, Devin Stubblefield is, I would consider excellent in maintaining eye contact while having this interview, right? So I'm assuming you've got some form of camera that can drop into your monitor, all right, at eye level, where maybe most likely my eyes are at. Is that what's happening over there?
Yeah, yeah. I've got a couple of cameras that are there. I've only got one that I'm working with at the moment, but I've got my HD camera behind my Logitech. I've got the Sony ZV-1. I use that when I'm recording videos, and I've got three monitors. Got a TV monitor, a 27-inch monitor, and then my laptop. So I've got all this stuff. I've got lights in each corner of my office. In the face ring light in front of me, and I don't have my green screen up today, but I've got my blank wall behind me. But that's my setup, and of course the Yeti mic that you see right here in front of me. But I figured that if I'm going to be on, I may as well be on at a decent level so that people are not distracted by low quality. And I think the sound and lighting does the trick, and that's just what I've just discovered from just being online so much lately. But it's fun, man. I love it. So it's awesome.
I know because yeah, I love that you love it because I know I love it too. Like I recently just spent a whole weekend building a new what's called a walk desk. I put a tread. I got an old treadmill. I put it underneath the desk, so I
Yeah.
now can actually continue to get the exercise I need, going forward while still getting work done. And so you got to be excited for some of this because let me ask this, Devin. And everyone's complaining I got Zoom fatigue, blah blah blah, right? And I don't think you have it, Devin. I think that you've got the inverse, right?
Yeah.
You've got the Zoom power. What keeps you motivated to either keep pushing on virtual and be excited about what virtual can do?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I'm able to be at home. I think that's the main thing. That was always a dream of mine when I was younger, to be self-employed and be able to work from home. And that came true. And being virtual actually helped make that happen. And
Yeah.
then the other part of it is, you think that, well, if you're home sitting down all day, you become sedentary. But no, I'm just like you, John. I've got a desk push a button and it's going to raise up, so, and then underneath me, I got a mat. So if I want to kind of do some walking, I could do that too, so you just gotta make it work for you.
Yes.
Everyone knows what their comfort levels are. So in my opinion, get a comfortable chair, get a raising desk, get a pad for your floor, for your feet, and then you're good. Then you can hang longer. And so the fatigue thing, I get people aren't feeling that way, but if they just take a moment to just think about, well, what's uncomfortable? Is it your eyes? Is it your butt? What is it? What's uncomfortable? And then just adjust for it.
And think about what's uncomfortable, sitting in an hour of traffic for a 30-minute meeting, right?
Exactly.
Or
Yeah,
in
man.
your warm, cozy home, especially today, right? It's freezing outside, right? This is
Yeah,
warm,
exactly.
this is cozy. You could have a hot coffee. All right. All your favorite things are here. No, I'm with you on that. And I love that you keep improving your setup. I think that's what a lot of people have kind of gotten. They reach a basic level and then they kind of stop.
Yeah.
And I'm one I've advocated, just like make one little thing better, and you'll soon find that you can spend all day and achieve all your goals, whether it's financial or personal or physical, and still get all this stuff done if you want to do it. So
Exactly.
the creativity is definitely there. All right, well, this Devin, if you had people remember one thing from this conversation, what's the one thing that you want them to remember?
That's a great question. The one thing to remember is this, that, right now, I believe that everybody can create their own opportunities.
Mhm.
And I believe that, from my vantage point, based on what I do for a living, I always help people to think about becoming your own economic center. And that is doable. That is totally possible. If we just take, like I said earlier, take the time to think about everything is figure outable, and then just get comfortable, right? And then just move forward. Because you know what? There are no limits. A good friend of mine always says, he says there really are no borders. And if you allow yourself to embrace that thought, that concept that there are no borders, then we can become fluid. And if we're fluid, we can grow and we can really get to that place that we all desire. So that's what I would say the takeaway for me. And that's why I'm here. I'm literally at my home in my office talking to you, even though we happen to be in the same state and same city. But the point is, you could have been, somewhere else, right? It could have been in Germany, or I could have been in Africa, wherever, right? But the point is that we're here because we want to be. And I think, going back to what I said earlier about mindset, that is the most important thing. So if we just really take the time to figure it out, then we can attain whatever we want. So that's my message. That's what I really minister through my financial empowerment
Yeah.
workshops, so
Yeah.
that people get the mindset behind what they're doing. So that's it, John.
That mindset is so important too, because I think, and we all know the famous stories, people who get lottery winnings and within
Yeah.
a year it's all gone. It's
Yeah.
you didn't
Yeah.
have the mindset to keep that capital, like what you suggested earlier. And so having that mindset, before you get the cash, well, I think will make it easier for you not only to get it, but most importantly, keep it.
Keep it. Right.
Devin,
Yeah.
if
Keep
my
it.
if my friends want to find you, where should they go to find you?
Yeah. Well, it's real simple. Just my name. DevinStubblefield.com. That's the easiest place to find me. And I'm also on social media. I'm on Facebook, LinkedIn, and what's the other one? Instagram. So yeah, that's it. So it's all good. I'm around. I'm findable. Yeah. Matter of fact, John, there are like 5 Devin Stubblefield. I couldn't believe it. Yeah, 5 Devin Stubblefield that are on social media. And so yeah, one of them is my son, but the other 4 have no.
Finding Devin Stubblefield is figure outable.
It's figure outable. That's right.
Devin Stubblefield. Devin Stubblefield. Devin, thank you so much for coming on to the show. We appreciate it. Love hanging around with you. I look forward to watching all your financial information that you got coming up. Thanks again, Devin.
Thanks, John. I appreciate you having me. This was great. I appreciate you. Thank you.
All right, this is John Chen, another engaging virtual meetings interview with our good friend Devin Stubblefield. Hey, stay safe this holiday and have a great holidays. Make sure you invest in those relationships and invest in your finances this holiday so that you can continue to have a lot more. We'll see you next time.
Always start people and keep old people. Show you